reason that we're having this press conference here today is to launch a national initiative to reduce the number of laser strikes on rotary and fixed-wing aircraft. This is a growing problem here, and why we're having this press conference is so that we can avert a possible disastrous event. So in February of this year, we kicked off a pilot project with this initiative in 12 metropolitan areas to see if we could have an impact on decreasing the number of laser strikes. And it was a success. We were able to decrease the number of reports of laser strikes down 19%. So this campaign will work, and it has proven to be successful. To give you a little bit of background about laser strikes, since 2005 is when we really started, the FBI started tracking this with the FAA, and from 2005 to today, the number of laser strikes have increased well over 1,000%. How many is that per day? It's about 9 per day across the country, and that's a huge event when you think about it. And just to kind of hit it home how relevant it is today there was a laser strike on the control tower at Kansas City International Airport just last night. So this is a real problem. It does happen. Let me give you a little idea of how many happen on a yearly basis here in Kansas City. In 2012, we had 49 incidents here. In 2013, the last year that we have full data for, we had 51. On this initiative here, one thing that I want to make sure everybody's aware of, that there's going to be a $10,000 reward for anybody given information that will lead to just the arrest of anybody involved in laser strikes. This is going to be a 90-day period, so the reward period will end on September 3rd. So real quickly, you might say, well, why is the FBI doing this campaign? I mean, why is the FBI involved in laser strikes? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is this is a huge public safety issue. It's a public safety issue for people on the ground. It's a public safety issue for people in the airplanes. It's a public safety issue, obviously, for the pilots. And that's a big concern here. Passenger safety as well. It's a huge, could potentially be a huge problem with passenger safety if a large commercial airplane gets a laser strike. Many people are not aware that this is against the law. Dave Ketchmark is going to talk to you a little bit about that, but people might think, well, geez, I'm just going to go out and take my laser, I'm going to point it up at a plane, I'm going to point it to a helicopter. You're committing a federal crime when you do that. There's a lot of consequences. Primarily, the biggest one is disorientation to the pilots, but it can cause temporary blindness. It can force the pilots to make an emergency landing, and ultimately could result in loss of control for the aircraft.
This is a very important issue for myself and the other pilots with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, along with all the other pilots that fly around the Kansas City area. I've actually been in the helicopter at least 5 times when we've had laser strikes inside the helicopter. One of the times in particular that it occurred is I was actually the observer or tactical flight officer and wasn't flying, but as we were going in for a landing in our helipad, which is a fairly confined area. It's not an area you have a whole lot of room for error, and obviously at night, because that's when most of the strikes happen, we noticed a flash of light off to our left. As I looked down towards the road, I could see a laser coming out of the front passenger seat of one of the cars. With the laser also, too, as far as identifying who's doing it, I could follow that laser right back to the car. And we aborted the landing, took off, ended up getting the party, contacted officers on the ground, ended up getting the party in custody. When they stopped him and asked him what he was doing, he still had the laser in his lap and said, I don't know, it just sounded like fun, something to do, point a laser at the helicopter. Well, especially at the time when he did it, when we were going in for a landing, the concentration of the pilot at that time has to be entirely on that landing and what he's doing. So the consequences could have been very grave at that point.